Welcome back to Demand Gen Chat. I'm your host, Tara Robertson, head of Demand Gen at Chili Piper. In this episode, I'm joined by Amber Bogie, Director of Global Demand Generation at Reachdesk. Amber and I spoke about how a lot of us B2B marketers have a lot of experience in times of growth, but not so much what she's calling these new squeeze times, and how we can work cross-functionally to make the most out of these times when budgets and headcount are probably less than we would like. We also get into the direct mail trends that she's seeing at Reachdesk, and the outbound play that gets her sales team 50% conversions to opportunity. I hope you enjoy my conversation with Amber. Amber, welcome to Demand Gen Chat. I'm so excited to have you on today.
Hi, I'm very excited to be here.
Yeah, it's super exciting to have someone from Reachdesk. We've been working closely with your team on a couple different things, but I'd love to start with just something fun and out there. What's your marketing hot take to share with our audience?
Okay, well, this one, I guess my hot take right now is that I love to look for silver linings in difficult situations. And I think all of us are feeling a little bit of struggle and pressure and everything going on with our circumstances. I'd have to say that my hot take is that this experience is making us really, really better at our jobs. It's making us better marketers. And I'm seeing that in the sense that, we're all talking a lot about alignment with the exec team and conversations with CFO and investing in that relationship. And what I'm feeling is we're doing a better job because we have to, but we should always be doing this job.
So not just when times are tough, but we should be working with our CFOs all the time. We should
and aligned with the entire exec team. So I saw a post the other day on LinkedIn about growth times versus times like this, which I'm calling growth versus squeeze. And it was kind of around how, during periods of growth for a lot of startups, especially, it's kind of all right, we have more funding, run with it, marketing, go play. And, I can't speak to every company, but a lot of these times there's a lot less questions being asked, a lot less scrutiny and evaluation. And I think that it's easy to take advantage of that. But in reality, during this squeeze time, we're having really tough conversations with the finance team, with, our co-founders, with, various parts of the organization. And sometimes we don't have those answers because we weren't asked to produce that before. Mm-hmm. And I'm really enjoying that kind of becoming a status quo for what feels like me. And for me, I'm a big proponent of analytics and always keeping an eye on, on the pulse of things. And I feel like it's, because of this scrutiny, it's forcing us to have to do that. But I'm this is how it should always be. That's just my hot take.
Yeah, I think a lot of demand gen marketers listening would be nodding along with that. I think what I'm curious about is when you're leading a team that isn't all demand gen marketers, how do you work with people on the team who are from maybe different backgrounds and trying to, maybe that analytics piece doesn't come as naturally to some people on the team. Have you run into that at all?
I guess I'd say yes. It's not necessarily a natural thing for different areas of the organization. I have worked with some content teams that aren't really doing any sort of digging into the impacts of their work. I think that's, potentially, an area, product marketing, content, that kind of thing. All we need to really do is shift the conversation and ask the questions. And ultimately, we need operations. Operations is the backbone of every organization. The emergence of marketing operations, revenue operations within an organization has grown substantially in, the last decade. And so we're now being asked to answer a lot of kind of data-driven questions, but some of that is still just not totally doable. So it's kind of that meme with Charlie from Always Sunny, and he's on the whiteboard,
just with wild numbers over
there. Yeah. It's sometimes sometimes there's just not an answer. Sometimes you kind of let go and not have to have a data driven metric to something. I think that there's a middle ground. if something's not working, you can look for the data, you can look for the answers, but I don't know that there's always going to be an answer. So it's kind of like finding that happy medium. We've gone from like being marketers being non-analytic, as a whole. I don't know about anyone, but a lot of people studied marketing or communications because, they were like bad at math, or at least I did. So it's like, there was some truth to that, is that, there weren't a lot of, for some years, it just wasn't like an obsession. And now we're like, oh, look at us. We can prove ourselves. We can do this. And I love it. It's amazing. But at the same time, we don't want to get too lost in it and forget, lose sight of like what value we're trying to bring to the business by way of, branding and community and certain things that are harder to measure.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense to me. And you mentioned ops as kind of the backbone of tracking some of these things and setting up analytics. Can you tell us a little bit about how Demand Gen works with ops at Reachdesk? Does marketing ops report into you, or is it a separate team?
Actually, we do have marketing ops, and we have our operations function reporting into the finance department, because we have a RevOps function. And I always think that having a RevOps organization is very telling of where you are in the maturity of a business and how you value operations and data and the technology that supports, the various arms of the business. So yes, we do have operations reporting into the finance department, and I work very, very, very closely with our operations counterparts. They are my besties.
Yeah, I think that ties back to your first answer, obviously, of working really close cross-functionally with executive teams, and obviously operations as the backbone of your analytics.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of just like tying into that cross-functional alignment, collaboration, and, the partnership with marketing ops, and how do they support us? Like, we have a weekly pipeline meeting, where we have we have our CRO, we have our CFO, we have our heads of sales, and we have, the marketing, head of business development, we have the marketing function. And every week we're talking about like where each of our divisions are pacing between each of their tiers, how we're all moving, and we're problem solving together. We're looking at a shared goal together. And if it's a sales ops or if it's a marketing ops thing, like we're having these conversations in one room. So everyone's aware of, if we're struggling here and we don't know the answer, we're looking to figure out like why. We're looking into doing that together, and then we have a solution. So it's like, absolutely, for me, it's been night and day, and ways that I have worked previously in previous organizations, and feeling like the information was kind of thrown at the wall, or like, oh, I hear we're behind on our numbers for this quarter, but like having no context into it. And there's information sharing that's happening, and there's goal sharing that's happening, accountability sharing, all of it. So, I mean, that's kind of goes back to even just like my hot take. I feel like that's very much that I'm very on theme, on brand right now with just like alignment of executives, why it's so important to be in the room, no matter your level of seniority, having, a seat at the table so that you can drive more impact to the business.
And you mentioned pipeline. So obviously you're tracking that closely. That's your impact on the business. But what other metrics does your Demand Gen team focus on, or do you report on every week?
For the Demand Gen function itself, we are reporting on a weekly basis how many meetings are coming in, how many opportunities we are creating, and the pipeline associated with that. And we're looking, of course, at like what is our line of sight for the meetings to be converted to opportunities based on our flip rates, focusing on our flip rates. We're looking at all of this across the different tiers. So we're not measuring leads. We're not like an MQL, like lead gen focus. Like all of that stuff is happening, but that's not our driver. Our driver is realistically how many meetings and opportunities that we're getting, and what is the conversion rate, and what is our inbound to close rate. I have grown up in ABM and come into a role that I have my arms around demand generation, and I'm building ABM out. And so it's been a really cool experience to probably go backwards from where most marketers are. Most marketers grew up in DG and they learned about ABM and they took over ABM. I've done the complete opposite. But I think there's a lot of value in coming through that direction because I have not been conditioned to be lead focused. I have not been conditioned to be like form builds, like contacts. It's always been about, for me, the end result and going backwards from revenue generation. Like, how do we get there? And yeah, I mean, I have seen significant, increases in our impacts, and paying attention to these things and asking questions around them. So it's like conversion and the flip rate. And it's, actually digging into why aren't we converting here? And how can we help that?
Yeah, it's interesting you said that reversal because I'm definitely one of those people who's from the more traditional demand gen. We need 1,000 leads this month to hit our quota. And I've just in conversations I've had recently, a lot of marketers are turning back to that model because their work is being scrutinized so much and they don't know what else to do to show value.
And honestly, like I don't blame them. I have felt that pressure too. And it is an uncomfortable place. I think that what I call it is, and I'm not saying that this is wrong or bad, but I'm calling it like reactive. It's reactive behavior versus, proactive. And so we're thinking about, and I don't like demand gen versus ABM. I don't think that those things are pitted against each other. I think they work together. I think that they need to be partners. I think that there's benefits to both strategies and that they exist. The world is a better place when they exist together. But kind of, the whole, if you call it the ABM is more around the investment, like the investment strategy, long-term results are yielded. Demand gen is very quick. And so I'm not surprised that people are are kind of shifting back to that lead model at all because there's pressure from the executives. How do we make impact tomorrow? And I have those same questions, when we're slowing down or we're not hitting in a certain area, it's what can we do? And honestly, we can make changes to bring in like quick results, but I would ask those people to look at if you're bringing in 1,000 leads next month because the pressure and you feel it, what are those leads converting to? Like at the end of the road, what's their conversion? Because right now our inbound to close rate has shot up like 20% over like the last 2 quarters. And I don't think that it's a coincidence.
That's a huge, a lot of people are seeing the opposite right now. So I'd love to dig into why you think that is that 20%.
I think there's a few different things to it. And I don't know that there's like a copy and paste answer here, but
yeah, everybody wants a silver bullet, but
there is one element that I think that, and I'm not being paid to say that, but there is one element that I do think has had a great impact. I'll get to that towards the end. But first things first is during like the first initial like panic moment of what's going on. Let's just say the scrutiny, the evaluation, me and my team, we evaluated all channels, all paid channels, all spends, all impacts, looked at everything.
Sorry, just for context, this would be probably like Q3 last year, midway through.
Yeah. We looked back 6 months, but it did start. This was in Q3 of last year. We looked back for like the last 6 months. It was like, what has literally every channel done? And like since the beginning of the year, and how are we spending? What's our cost per opportunity? All of this. And, surprise, who was asking? It was a CFO. Wonder why I feel so strongly about this relationship is, seeing massive impacts because somebody asked me to do something. My work got better because we did evaluate it. We spent the time to think about it. But so I would say it was a review of where our money was going, what it was yielding, What was our cost per opportunity? Just looking at all of that and optimizing the channels that were working. I mean, that sounds pretty basic, right? But like, is everybody actually doing that? That's a question. Is everybody actually optimizing their spend? And maybe, setting a goal every quarter to reduce the cost per opportunity by like 10%, like what are these micro goals that you can achieve? We ended up really, really improving our impacts. SEA became like our number one channel, organic social, which wasn't really a strategy internally until, someone on my team took it over, became the number two, bringing in opportunities. So like those two channels. And then, I will say that Chili Piper, we brought in Chili Piper and we started using Concierge in Q4. And I truly believe that the utilization of the Concierge has helped our quality significantly. We haven't necessarily increased the volume across our tiers. We haven't necessarily increased our demo, like requests coming inbound, but our conversion, like from inbound to close, has shot up like 20% in, a quarter and a half. And so I'm like, there's a lot of different things that came, that are certainly factors. But I do think Chili Piper Concierge, the tool that, we brought in, has been impactful. So that was the thing that I said I wasn't getting paid for. That's the true belief.
Thanks for reiterating. And when you say that 20% improvement, was there a certain part of the funnel that you were trying to fix or solve for? Or was it just close rates in general? You knew they could be better.
I'd say as an organization, yes, we have, been focused on increasing the opportunity to close rate as a whole. And we weren't being scrutinized for our inbound to close rate. So it wasn't something that we were, of course we were trying to make it better, but it wasn't something that we were obsessively looking at daily to see like, where are we? These tweaks here and there have just made a significant impact. And I think goes back to the whole like demand gen, feeling the pressure back to leads. It's yielding significant growth. And we're seeing some of the stuff that we're doing in demand gen, 1 quarter ahead is impacting us a quarter later. So it's not an overnight thing unless you're just wanting contacts and dumping them into the system, which is not my jam.
Yeah, I think especially coming from an ABM background, that doesn't surprise me that that's not your thing. I'd love to learn a little bit about, I know you've touched on ABM and demand gen working together. How does ABM fit into your team structure? Do you have someone owning ABM and kind of the enterprise or account strategy there?
I was hired to build out an ABM strategy for Reachdesk. It was part of my role as I came on. I'd been here, it's been almost a year now. And it was, ownership of demand. That's inclusive of demand gen and ABM. Long story short is I'd spent most of my time here optimizing the demand gen engine and building the foundation of ABM. So in terms of like ownership, it's underneath me. And we are looking to grow that function here coming soon. We are just days away from launching 6 Sense, the predictive model to our sales org. And, I'm extremely excited about that. So when it comes to, kind of like the ABM model, I mentioned like demand gen and ABM need to live together. I believe that like one person should own the demand gen strategy and one person should own the ABM strategy, but next to each other. I have been that ABM person and I have been like 100 yards away from the demand gen person. And I don't want that. So I think it's been nice that we haven't had a dedicated ABM person to date. We will, but, our owner of, our day-to-day demand gen activities, she has been supporting, kind of the foundational build of all of this. So there is such an element of partnership that will be kind of brought in once we do have a dedicated person. And I talk a lot about enablement and I talk a lot about foundations and I talk a lot about operations. when it comes to ABM, like those things are key, critical, do or die. ABM campaigns, like we're marketers, we know how to do campaigns. We don't need to really lose sleep over that. We are creative, like we'll get it done. It's the foundational work that takes so much time. It's the operational stuff that, you sell a strategy into an organization and you haven't thought through, like, how do I operationalize this? Like a lot of that stuff has been worked on, for the last, so many months. So we're about to kind of kick off the operational stuff with obviously 6 Sense, as I mentioned. Mm-hmm. The campaign side of things, I call it ABM Lite, and that's, here's our capacity right now, like that's what we've been doing. So really it's just been segmented campaigns. And those are, simple. It's just really utilizing all the different tactics, and channels and having a streamlined message. So you've got a webinar, you've got an event, you've got, corporate, you've got like a gifting, strategy, you've got, the outreach, you've got kind of all of those different pieces to a set list of accounts. So that's sort of the ABM Lite. And, yes, we are going to be growing that strategy very, very soon. And I'm very, very excited about it.
That's exciting. And obviously, I mean, to me, in my mind, the most important part of ABM is the accounts and who are you reaching out to? How do you work with your sales team, or who owns creating those target account lists today? And obviously that'll change when you bring in this ABM role, I'm assuming, but how does that happen today?
Yeah. So how it happens today is it does, their target accounts live within, I'd say more or less the revenue operations function. And it is it's very much in support of my own method, which is, it's a 2-step process. It's data first and then sales buy-in second. So what are the accounts that fit within our ICP that are supported by all of these different data points? What does that audience look like? All right, of this like list of like 500 accounts, let's say, all right, salesperson in this territory, which of these accounts do you feel best about? Because you have, information about them that isn't necessarily found in a software system, that you've got previous relationships, you've got contacts, you've got kind of that non-technical, information at hand. So that is kind of that's the strategy that I prefer. And fortunately, it's, what we're doing here. And then, similarly, it's like, all right, your sales targets and then your marketing targets, like, are they different? Because they shouldn't be, right? So it's, where, we have our audience, on the demand gen side, which is obviously a lot bigger than the target list side. And then, of that, we select we work with the sales team to utilize their selected accounts to prioritize.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. So data driven, but you're using that anecdotal feedback from sales to prioritize. And yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. I think that's, it's a winning strategy.
Yeah. And then sales is happy because they get their say, but they're not doing all the work of pulling lists and the operational side.
If it was up to them, it would all be like Google and, Amazon. Like if it's completely just sales selected, it's always like the biggest account that is the hardest to win, the whales, as if like, we're going to win them in a week, kind of thing. So it's like finding that happy medium. What data supports this being the target account that is most likely, to be sold to? Of course, utilizing a platform like 6 Sense or Demandbase, you get further information about when is the right time to reach out to them. And then you've got the sales team who's like bought into this account because they've had a say.
You mentioned direct mail earlier, and obviously I have to ask because you're at Reachdesk, but I'd love to hear, first of all, how direct mail fits into your go-to-market on the marketing side. And then also, how do you empower your outbound reps, if you do, to use direct mail in their cadences? I
mean, because of the products that we offer, it is fortunate that we drink our we drink our own Kool-Aid. Like it is such a integral part of our business.
Mhm.
We don't really have to try and force it in any capacity, I would say, so like internal gifting, external gifting, like we're all about it. And so, it's not like it exists. So how do we utilize it? We've got marketing direct mail campaigns and we've got, sales direct mail campaigns. The outbound team has a list of plays that work really well. For example, the congratulations, like direct mail campaign. If somebody got a new job, has a baby, like basically won an award, like any sort of congratulatory gift is a 50% like conversion to an opportunity. So that one works really well. There's also another one they call Amazon Rainmaker. That one has really good results for them. But we have, basically think about it like a template of outbound campaigns that they utilize. And these are BDRs, they're out in the trenches. It's wonderful for us to be able to offer this to them because, the product itself is all about delivering moments that matter, points of connection, like human moments. So it's great to have that as a resource. It is not a quid pro quo. It is not a gift for a meeting strategy. That is not what we are about. And in terms of the marketing, like how do we leverage that? It's, similar to like when I mentioned segmented campaigns, like how can we make this more fun? How can we bring in a gift, that works well with this campaign? So example of that being is, we've got a CFO, we're calling it CFO campaign we're doing this quarter. It's all about that relationship with the finance department and very much more of a thought leadership driven kind of campaign style. It's more about we're feeling pain. Let's talk about it. How can we make this better? Our CFO actually, we did a Christmas video around the holidays of like, what's your favorite gifts that you've ever given or received? And he said it was a gift that was given. It was a Patagonia vest to another CFO. And he's like, because like CFOs and, we're the best. So we actually, as a part of this CFO campaign, we're actually giving vests like as a gift for the prospects that we're going after. It's sort of like warm up your relationship with your CFO with this, with this vest, kind of like a play on that. So, that's just another example. And then of course we are, a very customer focused, customer driven organization. So how are we, sending gifts to our customers and how are we actually supporting them with the utilization of gift sends? And so we also have, dedicated ABX managers on the customer side that help our customers actually leverage the product to the best of their ability, come up with campaign ideas, best practices, sort of like an internal kind of resource, if you will.
That seems fun, brainstorming the different gifts you can send and the different occasions to send gifts. That's a creative piece of marketing that a lot of us love. So that's cool to be able to do that for your customers every day.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think some, more organizations, MarTech organizations specifically are providing that resource to their customers, a dedicated resource, almost like an internal consultant, beyond a CSM role, right? Like I've noticed that I feel like a couple years ago, Terminus built out that in their organization, dedicated kind of ABM strategists. And, we're doing something similar where we're like, ABM is hard. You don't always have the resources to do it internally. We're providing a product, like let us help.
And are you able to leverage data from other customers to say, hey, we know if you send this at this moment in the opportunity, this will help move things along? Or is the product data a little bit of a black box today?
Oh, no, we absolutely have the ability to look at that and see different wins from customers. We even do a quarterly gifting guide that we put out every quarter for mostly it's like, customer facing, but anyone who's really looking for ideas on gifting is basically these templates, plug and play. Like this works really well. This is what we've done before. So they're not just, things that we've done, but of course, things that customers have done as well. And
Cool.
so, yeah, definitely able to support that with data.
That's the most interesting piece to me, especially if I was in your shoes. I would love to get access to that data so you can say, well, we want to be that use case, right? Like we want to figure out what the next big play is and try to experiment with that. So that's really cool.
I mean, that's exactly when I saw the data around the congratulations gift. I was like, oh my, like 50%.
50%. That's
huge.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And I think that's, if you really think about it, like giving someone a gift is not creating an opportunity, right? It's the purpose of that gift is to congratulate somebody on something meaningful that happened in their lives. So really what they're doing is they're connecting and having a meaningful moment. It's not like the gift itself is creating opportunity. So, it's establishing that relationship and that connection between, these two people that it's obviously yielding significant results. And so that just kind of goes back to it supports the, why you should have a direct mail strategy without question. It supports why you should have an ABM strategy. Like it's all about that level of humanization, personalization, person to person.
Yeah. And that's what makes it memorable at the end of the day. I mean, getting something like a real tangible gift is pretty rare these days. So makes it memorable for sure. Are there any kind of new or up and coming gift ideas that you've seen customers use that you were like, oh, I really want to try that for ourselves? I love the vest example. That's so on brand for CFOs and finance, but anything else that comes to mind?
I mean, we have so many different gifting options. I think that it just comes down to being creative, right?
Yeah, you don't want to send what everybody else is, especially in your shoes.
And not just sending a gift to send a gift, like really nobody needs another water bottle for the rest of their lives. I know you at Chili Pepper, you guys have hot sauce and like that's something that's like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Like,
yeah, we keep thinking we've overdone it, but we still find new people that haven't got one yet.
Yeah. And it's so synonymous with your brand, So I think it's just kind of like finding that, those things that work for your organization. And not everybody's going to be able to be a Chili Pepper hot sauce. Like, I don't know, we send cupcakes and that's definitely been like a Reachdesk thing, but not everybody has to have like this, like, token gift that their organizations are known for. It's also like, what is a really meaningful thing that you can send to somebody?
Yeah. So sometimes personalized is definitely better than being like on brand necessarily for you. I think one trend that I'm happy to see kind of out the wayside is just putting your logo everywhere on everything and sending that. To me, that's not really a gift. It's just a branded thing.
Yeah, because it's not about us. At the end of the day, like we want people to remember our names. We need that recognition. We need that brand recognition. But we need to be subtle. We need to be marketers. There's the moment you create an emotion with somebody, they're going to hold on to that. But if it's a negative emotion, they're going to hold on to that. So your first kind of emotional connection with a brand, be it positive or negative, it sticks with them. Like that's our responsibility to think about. Like that's why I very much become a brand ambassador for companies whose brands I'm a fan of and I respect because I've had this positive moments, positive connections. And then I speak about them and I share positive things about them. I'm promoting them. Nobody's asking me to do that. If the opposite happens and something comes up about that company, then I'm also talking about like, oh, this thing happened to me. So it's like, we need to think about that.
You mentioned earlier that you did kind of a full deep dive on different channels and different programs that were or weren't working a couple of quarters ago. Were there any tough cuts that you did have to pause? Or maybe even just decide we're we're not doing this anymore. It's not giving us good ROI?
I would have to say, like many, we have really scaled back our event.
And is that sponsoring trade shows, or what type of events have you seen?
Yeah, I'd say like showing up with booths. It's expensive. It is expensive. And, for the most part, events, they return your investment with, a handful of opportunities, but they have to close. So you really need that to happen. Yes, we were seeing ROI. Were we seeing as impactful ROI on events as we were other channels? No, we didn't have a dedicated events person anymore. And so it just seemed like the easiest one to make the decision on. Events are exhausting. And anyone who does it for a job, I am applaud you, bow to you. It's a very, very hard job to do. Speaking to us specifically, we're still a young company. And, our event strategy was on the, earlier side of maturity, and we were figuring it out. And it made the most sense for us to just focus on sponsorships with people like Chili Piper and various other vendors that we've done, sponsorships with, where it's a little bit lighter of a lift for us. But we're getting that brand exposure. And that has been beneficial to us. It's, we've been fortunate to be, I like to say it's like the cool kids club. We've been fortunate to have a lot of cool companies ask us to partner with them on various things. And so, we've really kind of leaned into that as a way of showing up to events, but in a different capacity.
Yeah, I think a lot of B2B marketers still think of events as you have to get the booth. It's a non-negotiable. You have to drop $50K on the booth and travel. But there's so many other ways to be there and have a presence. So
there's a thing called, I don't know if I've just aged out of this, but there's this thing called sharking events. And our BDR team does it. It's basically rating events, making sure there's sales presence there. And having a plan of action, like this is who, where, when, why, and this is what I expect to come home with. And that's that's a very low cost investment. And I don't know, as a marketer, I think about why I go to conferences. I might be an anomaly, but I'm not really spending a lot of time with booths. I'm going to the sessions. I'm interacting.
I don't think that's unusual. I think a lot of us that used to sponsor trade shows would kind of tell ourselves that people wanted to talk to us at a booth, but
there's a handful of people that do that, and I think they're keeping this alive. They're keeping it alive.
I think there's a flip side too of if, especially in MarTech, it's such a small community that often we're there to pitch other booths. So that's kind of an unusual thing.
Yeah.
That a lot of companies, it doesn't apply to them, but if it applies to you, then getting a booth could be worth your while.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's value to it, no question. Our sales team they prefer that we do sponsor. They do feel that there is more impact to them. But as marketers, it's not, yes, we want meetings, opportunities. So what I'm going to say, but it's not always about that. It's also about what is it doing for your brand? And, focus on what you can measure, but at the same time, do not obsess on it so much that you're losing sleep, because what's the whole number doing? What's the whole number doing? Similar to ABM, measurement becomes a little bit harder because you're utilizing all these different channels at the same time, and you're looking at accounts, as a whole. You're not necessarily tying things the same way you were before. I mean, I don't know if anyone's being mad for saying this, but I'm like, if the number is going up, I don't care. If, it's like, let's just increase the impact. It's good to have answers. It's good to have analysis. Do not get me wrong. I'm obsessed with it. But if you're winning, focus on that.
You're doing something right. Yeah. So maybe don't question things too much if you're hitting targets. On the flip side, you mentioned losing sleep over things. But what is something that's getting you really excited right now, or something that you're looking forward to through the rest of the year?
I'm so looking forward to growing the team with the ABM strategy and to, allowing my team to grow in their careers. I have found a lot of joy in being a leader and kind of not repeating the mistakes of previous bosses that I've had. Is kind of like what I say. It's like not doing the things that made me miserable and not, creating this horribly painful path to kind of climbing the ladder. I've taken a lot of joy in providing mentorship and, working in a collaborative team. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to the impacts of the business with the strategy that we're growing our account-based strategy, and we're doing it together with demand generation. And I'm really looking forward to, bringing somebody else on the team to help support that. I'm really looking forward to the existing team being able to level up and, challenge themselves in new ways. And I'm looking forward to continuing to be challenged, and working with, the C-suite and having that seat at the table.
Yeah, that's an exciting thing to look forward to, growing your team. And obviously with your background in ABM, I'm sure that's super exciting to hire someone and take that piece off of your plate so you can really focus on strategy.
Yeah, I'm so excited about that. I know it sounds terrible. I'm just excited to be like a supporter. It's like I've done the executing for a long time and I love the strategy side of things. And you can still be, executing on ABM and the strategic driver of it. But I've gone up one level and I am so excited and I'm enjoying it so much.
Well, it's exciting to hear that Reachdesk is growing. I know, like you were saying, times are tough right now, but some teams are still growing. Some marketing teams are still hiring. So that's really giving a nice silver lining for everyone. And we'll keep an eye on Reachdesk as you guys grow. So move on to our quick fire round. First of all, is there another marketer you follow that our listeners should go check out?
Yes. So I have a few on this, on this one. Well, I didn't mention by name, but the whole time I was talking about our strategy and our team and things that we're doing, what we're optimizing. Somebody, I'm like Sophia Silva. She's on my team. She's a unicorn. You know her. She's a marketer on the rise, and it is such a pleasure to obviously be able to work with her directly. I think she's an influencer on the rise. I had a boss years and years ago refer to somebody on her team as, oh, she's going to be my boss one day. I don't remember what that, I don't remember thinking I knew what that meant at the time. And now I get it. I'm like, we say Sophia for president. She's going to be, she's going to be our boss.
It's a huge compliment.
She's amazing. So if you aren't following her, you should. She's amazing. I also, two others. So Amber Rhodes, and because for her, she has a podcast specifically. I mean, I know most people probably know who she is, at User Gems, and she's fairly active on, the LinkedIn scene, but she has a podcast called Everything's Coming Up Marketing. And that one I think is really important to flag because that podcast is about mental health. And I think that it's really, really important to talk about, ourselves outside of just data and numbers. We're human beings, and I embody authenticity. I don't know. That's like a buzzword, but I embody just being yourself, being vulnerable, talking about real things. And so I love that there is somebody out there that is promoting this conversation.
Great.
And then the third one, hoping that we have time for sharing all of these amazing humans, is Justin Fordham. He's an ABM leader out there, and he also just started a podcast called The Revenue Engine. It's on, obviously, revenue operations, but him specifically, I met him in the Peak community, and he is an ABM strategist that is just really, really incredible. So those are my peeps.
Great. So we'll put links for all those three in the show notes if you're not familiar, so you can give them a follow. And Amber, what's an under the radar channel, or could be a tactic that your team is really loving right now?
Gosh, I mean, I'm just calling OG social, organic social. That is I wouldn't call it under the radar. Some people utilize it, others don't, but we have seen tremendous impacts from focusing on this channel. That is also inclusive of, internal advocacy. So we're definitely have a lot of that kind of going on internally. As I mentioned, Sophia just a second ago, like she has taken on the organic social and, with just paying attention to it for a couple months, like we saw it yielding very significant. I think it was $800,000 in pipeline, like in 6 months.
Wow.
Yeah. So, that one is $3.99, as they say. And then the other one is actually creeping the community Slack channels. Some people randomly ask questions in those channels. And if you have somebody paying attention, like we've seen closed-won opportunities from that. And I wouldn't say that like everybody do that because those channels are supposed to be a safe space. But if somebody
don't go pitching right away, but if
someone asks a question, we're just like, I'm just going to leave this here. If somebody wants to pick it up, cool. Those are channels like we're marketers. We're always like, if somebody asks us, we love to market not just our own products, but somebody else's. If somebody asks me about a meeting tool, or I'm going to say like Concierge, like Chili Piper. If somebody asks me about, like content experience, I'm going to be like Uberflip. I'm obsessed. It's like, this is just opening up a whole advocacy customer conversation on and on about, but basically, yes, creeping the community Slacks, respectfully.
Yeah, that's the key piece, or you could get in trouble or get
it's not salespeople doing that. It's actually just like marketers on the side, like, oh, hey, I noticed you asked about this. Let me just suggest it. So
yeah, or even better if you can get your customers and your community doing that for you, which is a whole other can of worms, but it's much better.
That's it, right there.
Great. And lastly, where can our audience go to find out more about you or follow your content?
That would be the good old LinkedIn. That is the channel for me.
Cool. So we'll put that link in the show notes as well, so everyone can keep in touch with Amber and see how Reachdesk is growing. Thanks so much, Amber, for joining me.
Thanks for having me. It was an absolute pleasure.
Great. And thanks everybody for listening. We'll be back in a couple weeks with a brand new episode.
Thanks for listening to Demand Gen Chat. Demand Gen Chat is a Chili Piper podcast, hosted by Tara Robertson and produced by me, Nola McCoy. If you're enjoying the podcast, please leave us a 5-star rating on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. It only takes 5 seconds and helps other marketers like you discover Demand Gen Chat. Also, if you'd like to have a question answered in a future episode, you can connect with Tara Robertson on LinkedIn. Send her a DM with your question and it could be answered on a future episode. Finally, if you've gotten this far and are wondering what Chili Piper even is, Chili Piper helps B2B marketers book more qualified meetings for their sales teams. You can't afford to leave opportunities on the table, so let your leads self-qualify and schedule a time with the right rep instantly. And that's just one of the many revenue-impacting things that Chili Piper does. Visit chilipiper.com to learn more. And thanks again for listening. We'll see you on the next episode of Demand Gen Chat.